Good evening. Welcome to this month's Town Administrator's Report. I'm David Watts Jr., and with me is our Town Administrator, Steve Maio. Steve, welcome.
Thank you, David. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
We both survived the holidays.
Survived the holidays. A little bit more of me to love, I think, after the holidays, but we'll work on that.
And survived the snowstorms.
And survived the snowstorms, yeah.
Yeah. First off...
Bombogenesis, whatever it is now. A new word in everybody's category.
Yes. Yeah. The snowstorm hurricane.
Hurricane,
Yeah. Let's start off first on kind of a sad note, but a reminiscence too. We recently lost Phyllis Hull.
Yes,
who has a long history with Wakefield as a select person, as the chairman of the World War II Memorial Committee, as quite frankly, one of the town characters.
Right, and an activist in the Taxpayers Association. When you go way back, was probably very instrumental in bringing in Proposition 2.5 when that did come in years ago. But I think at her core, whether you agreed with her or disagreed on the issue, her heart was always what she believed to be best for the people of Wakefield and for the town of Wakefield. Didn't really care whether that helped her or hurt her in the next election or in the next day. Right. But it was whatever she believed was best for the people of Wakefield. And you've got to respect that, even if you view things differently.
Well, and also, even if you disagreed with her and vehemently disagreed with her, at the end of the day, she would still come up, say hello, how are you, how's the family? You know, she didn't hold grudges.
No, she didn't. And we spent, over the last few years, as she was a board member, I spent a lot of time with her, as I do with the board anyway. You'd go over issues, you'd go over budgets, you'd go over things that are happening, maybe what are your priorities as a member of the board, what do you want to do? And, my line of thinking wasn't always exactly the same as her line of thinking. I think over the years we came much closer together on it. But I remember on a couple of occasions she would say, and we'd be discussing it, and we'd be going back and forth, and she would say to me, Steve, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I've made up my mind, and I don't want to be mad at you. So let's move on. And I said, okay, let's move on. We've exhausted this subject. And you know what? It's when we see what's going on today in the world and in the civil discourse and in the way people talk to each other, one-on-one and in Facebook, and we have altercations in restaurants and at the 7-Eleven and on the streets. With Phyllis, even when she was diametrically opposed, okay, you could find that common ground. And she was always civil, always respectful. And she expected that in return. And she deserved it in return. And, I think over the years, people got to know that. Very kind heart person. She was very kind, always asked about my wife and my kids. Has been over the house, was at my son's wedding. I mean, just a really nice person to the core. And I will miss her because even in the periods when she was off the board, she would call me to ask me about things, find out what's going on over here. And it was always not for her to know or be nosy. It's because a citizen had stopped her. Stopped her on the street or called her at home, and she'll say, I'll find out about that. I'll call Steve down at Town Hall. And, she'll be missed, and, we may never see anybody quite like that again. Certainly not someone who, we can tell her age now because it was out there, certainly not someone at 93 pulling out papers to run for selectman.
She was planning on running
She was
one
planning
more
on
time.
running, and she was going to run hard, and she told me that she had all her signs, and she was running, and she was going to work hard, and so she will be missed, and she will be. I've been kind of going through my personal history with her in my mind, and thinking about that. So I'm going to have something that I'll probably submit at some point. I really want to do it justice and want to think about it first. But she will be missed. I think every board member that spoke about her the other night at our meeting, the entire board came to her services, and many that were on past boards with her. So I guess at one point, I guess you could say that she really united the board. that one last time. So it was nice to see.
The turnout in general at the funeral on Saturday last was, we're taping this the week after the funeral, was just amazing.
Yeah.
You know, the range of people who showed up to say goodbye.
Yeah. And the range of ages.
And the
You
range
can't
of
just say
ages.
it was just the older population of people.
Right.
And so I was, you know, I like I said, I spent a lot of time with her over the last few years. Talked to her, I'm going to miss her at breakfast. You know, we used to meet for breakfast down at the Chuck Wagon, and she would always have something. And if any, I'll tell you that if anybody down there she felt was picking on me, she would go right at them, hammer and tong. I said, Phyllis, I'm fine. And they used to tease her and say, oh, next time Steve comes down, warn us because we'll all wear ties. Phyllis wants us to wear ties to meet with you. So we had some good times, so I will miss her.
And I think you mentioned once that when you were applying for town administrator, you weren't her first choice.
I was not her first choice. I think I became her first choice, but it made me work harder to become her first choice.
Yeah.
So,
and there is one legacy of Phyllis left, and that is saying the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of each session of town meeting.
And the World War II Memorial.
And the World War II Memorial.
She worked so hard for that.
Yes.
And it is such a beautiful, beautiful addition and monument to our Veterans Memorial Common. She was very particular, didn't want anybody to harm that, and she would watch that like a mother hen. And I think what's really great is that beautiful monument has expanded to, you know, we've redone a couple of the others to kind of be in concert with that. So, and my office is right there at Town Hall, and I will tell you that I see people constantly, almost daily, if I look out the window, that are looking for a name on that, or just looking at it. And so, what a great job! And it was she was such a happy day for her when that was dedicated, and I was thrilled and happy to be there with her. So,
Yes.
all good.
Another legacy, because if I remember correctly, she was on the selectmen at the time that they formed it, was the group that I'm currently part of, the Wakefield Human Rights Commission.
Yes, yeah.
In 2015, she was part of the formation.
She was
of that.
part. I mean, the selectmen did need to sign off on that and approve it. And I think, of course, a group could have gone out on their own. You can do any group you want,
Right.
but I think it needed to have that support from the executive board in town, the senior board in town. And Phyllis, again, all about fairness with Phyllis. So I think that she was part of that, and I think in the end proud to be part of that, which was nice.
And of course, right now on the commission, we're going through writing our report for 2017
for town meeting.
for
Yes,
town-
better get that in.
Town report.
Yeah.
And it's out being reviewed by fellow commissioners.
Good. All right, good.
As we speak.
And it
But,
needs to be typed. It can't be as nice as your handwriting is. It needs to be typed so we can put it. Needs to be electronic.
It's typed, I promise. But no, Sherry sent me the
template.
Form. Everything has to be a certain way, so we've followed that.
Right.
But of course, what we're so happy about on the commission, and now I'm speaking as chair, is that we came such a long way in 2017. 2016 was really kind of getting our feet wet, finding our way,
introducing it to the
introducing it, but also how we wanted to
Right.
relate to the town. And the commission had decided from the beginning we didn't want to be an adjudicatory body. To be the ones people would come to us and look for answers. We wanted to educate. We wanted to educate all groups in town, all age groups. And that's where 2017, I think, we really hit our stride because one of the things we found was building collaborations. And, so we were able to build collaborations with Wakefield Alliance Against Violence. And we worked together on a number of different things, including farmers market and things like that. We also collaborated with the Unitarian Universalist Church Social Action Committee to create the new annual speaker series. And last year it was on white-black race issues. We had Ken Wagner come and talk about white privilege, and we had Martin Henson from the Boston chapter of Black Lives Matter come and talk about that group. And, the interplay between the audiences in both of those talks was just extraordinary.
Yeah. And it's so needed today.
Yeah.
When you look at the national discourse, and we've been talking about this for a while, you and I,
Sure.
and I talk about it with my board, and I talk about it with other managers in the area. And it used to be years ago, what's your biggest concern? Your biggest concern is all the budget, this and that. But I think really right now the biggest concern is that the tone is such that, and nationally, that people aren't talking to each other.
Right.
To see each other's point of view, you don't have to agree with it, but to see it, accept it as that is a valid way of looking at something. Okay, I don't agree with it, but I understand you have the right to believe that. And then to go forward and find that middle ground and to come with a solution. I mean, everything that we do here in Wakefield is about, a town meeting vote, the purest form of democracy. There is going to be debate at town meeting. People are going to be on opposite sides, but at the end of the day, a vote is taken, and that's what happens, and then people need to go their ways and accept that as the will of the people. You don't see that happening, or you see it stonewalled to a certain extent in the national level. So I'm very proud of what we do here. I think the tone is generally pretty good, better here than in other communities, and I credit educational programs like the HRC and getting that word out there and working with the different groups in town and what have you to say, let's have this talk shop, let's celebrate some of this diversity, let's celebrate what other people bring to the table. And I think this recent Martin Luther King Day event, what a great, fabulous awardees, a fabulous program. The gentleman from Wakefield who was a teacher at
Kevin Dewar.
At is it Cambridge Original Latin now? He's
Yes.
a teacher, and the thing and his resume, it's like, wow, unbelievable what he's accomplished. And what I liked about his resume a lot, and the HRC bringing this forward, this isn't just some guy in an ivory tower that's writing treaties on race relations, right? He's been out there also doing, how many kids can dance in a flash mob. So there was a lot of that fun stuff too. So he was talking the talk and walking the walk. The young people that sang that day, the young middle school girl that sang that song, unbelievable. You could have heard a pin drop.
Right.
And then followed by the high school kids that sang afterwards. So I think that's all part. I think we're doing something right here, and I think that the proof is in the pudding. Not that it's a straight line, that we are going to have bumps in the road, and we are going to have, altercations between people that, are on one side of the political spectrum and the other, certainly on Facebook.
Right.
I'm hoping that I'd love to see that calm down. Maybe that's hoping for too much. But I think you can see now some people saying that, hey, wait a minute. Let's bring this back to some sort of a normal conversation. And I credit the HRC for setting that tone. The speaker series, even a talk shop.
Right.
I sometimes there are people that haven't come that way yet. But we listen to them, and then there is maybe there is a Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination. There are avenues to go that we can help shepherd the process in.
Well, and there was a great story, CNN reported a story in early December, and I made reference to it in a talk to the Wakefield Rotary before Christmas. And in my opening remarks at MLK Day, Darrell Davis, who came from Belmont, a black blues musician, and he has made it his life's mission to build bridges with people who belong to the Ku Klux Klan.
Great story.
And, there is so much talking past each other today. There is no talking at each other. It's yelling to, the other, your own constituency. And he has somehow been able to bridge that gap between a black man and a member of the Ku Klux Klan to the extent that 45 at last count have left the Klan, and as a thank you to Darrell Davis, gave him their Klan robes.
Wow. Wow, what a story.
As a tribute,
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
what he... It is possible to bridge the unbridgeable if you make the effort.
Exactly.
We have seen toward the end of last year a couple incidences at the Galvin Middle School of swastikas
Yes.
in one of the boys' bathrooms. And, how do we approach that? Because, and this is my own personal opinion now, I question whether the kid or kids who are responsible for this understand the meaning when they put a swastika up on a wall.
Yeah.
What it has become. And to that end, thanks to Dr. Kim Smith, she and I and a daughter of Holocaust survivors are going to get together soon and talk about putting together a panel discussion for school-age kids on the Holocaust, on why the swastika, which was a completely peaceful symbol before 1925,
prior to the
has such overtones of evil today. And why they need to think about these things. And hopefully maybe that will bridge that gap.
Right. We certainly have learned that words matter. Symbols matter. And I think that particularly at the middle school age, there was no understanding of that. So that was really too bad. But I also juxtapose that and those incidents that happen, and as horrible as they are, and we do need to educate more. We do need to do all those things. Having a town that has a Christmas tree, has menorah, has all these things. Now, we had a menorah last few years on the Veterans Memorial Park.
Right.
To have maybe 100 people come out of all faiths, myself being one of them, the police chief was there, members of the Board of Selectmen were there, to celebrate the lighting of the menorah and what that means, and to have that menorah be there on the common for the length of Hanukkah and beyond by the time, it comes.
Right.
And no incidents, no comments, just really a great appreciation for another culture and another way of looking at something, another belief. And so I'm very proud of this community. And then across the street you have a nativity scene. My father always said, you need to celebrate all these cultures,
Right.
and everything, and take the good out of all of them. And I think we're headed in that direction. And the Metco director at the high school runs an international night, and that's coming up. I want to say February, March. I don't know the day, and they do it at the Galvin cafeteria. Early April. Okay.
Early April.
What a great night that is.
Yeah.
And you see the different cultures, and what I like about it is how proud people are about their culture, and they should be. I remember one man coming to me, says, Mr. Maio, and I always say, no, it's Steve. No, you're Mr. Maio. I said, no, it's Steve. So we had that. He says, I want you to have this special tea, this Moroccan tea. It was fabulous.
Yeah.
And he was so proud that was part of his culture that he could
Right.
share. I think that's, and maybe that's the word, share.
Right.
We need to share and not tear down what other people
Right.
have. So it makes us all better. And I think the HSE has done a great job in doing that.
Well, and meeting people and doing what I do in media, and as a historian, I get to meet a lot of different people. One of the greatest thrills was 2 years ago meeting Edgar Krause. Edgar Krause is a survivor of Theresienstadt, or what they call Terezin now.
Yeah.
And What was important about his story, his daughter-in-law, I know through some other friends, her father was a member of the Hitler Youth.
Wow.
Her husband's father, Edgar, was a survivor of Theresienstadt.
Wow.
And yet the two men were best friends.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
they bridged that gap
Yeah.
over the years and became best friends. But what was important, the afternoon I met Edgar Krause, shared a Turkish coffee with him, which he was very fond of, and he told me a little bit about his story. We never got a chance to film his story, but he is part of a documentary called Defiant Requiem, which would be fun to show here in Wakefield
Yeah.
sometime. A group of prisoners were brought together and performed Verdi's Requiem as
Wow.
a protest against their jailers. They ended up performing it over a 2-year period 16 times.
Wow.
And a documentary was made some years ago about a recreation of the concert
Wow.
and about that story. But to hear it firsthand, that they found a way to say to their jailers, no, this is wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And found a way that they were very talented in.
Yes.
They used what they had to fight back.
Yes.
In that horrible time.
Yes.
Fabulous.
But we don't want to see a repeat of that.
No.
And there are too many parallels right now to the 1920s, to the 1930s, that we need to start looking out for. We need to
Right.
start communicating with each other.
Right. And I think that needs to start at the local level,
Yes.
frankly. I think, and I think it has, and I think it will, and I think we'll continue that. And it's something that my board is, in fact, was brought up the other night. You know, we had an innocuous, I could call it a hearing on a issue that happened in one of our local restaurants, okay? And one of the board members talked about the fact that, you know, we've had a couple of these now, these altercations, and this particular one, you know, had to do with some violence being, you know, two people, and we don't know why that happened. We don't know what the crux of the matter was, but I think that the bigger and the more pervasive picture is that why is that happening? Did they have an argument about politics at the bar? And even the owners that came in who were quite aghast and embarrassed that they had to be there for this, but unfortunately that's what happens sometimes, was that they are listening to the crowd and listening to people, and when they hear the conversation turn over to politics, national politics, that they go over and say, hey, you know, you guys need to calm down, you know, and because they're seeing it. So if they're seeing it at a local place, which, hey, should be fun, right? You're going out to dinner, you're going out to socialize and what have you, yet the conversation turns. And we've had that happen before. So how do we, as a community, stop that? It's an interesting question, and it's a daunting question at the same time. And I know I don't have the answers to that, but I think talking with and not by each other is probably the first step.
Right.
And making people more aware of a lot of these other programs and other views out there, I think, is probably, you know, step 1B, 1A, 1B. And I think we need to do more of that. And I'd like to see more people come out and, you know, learn about, you know, the lighting of the menorah and learn about the different cultures.
Right.
Come to the, I was very happy with the turnout on Martin Luther King Day, frankly. That was a good turnout for that
Better
day.
turnout than last
Better,
year.
and I think it'll be better year
Next
after.
year, sure.
Year after.
Sure.
And I looked in the crowd and I saw new people in the crowd, which was great, and I saw a lot of the people that really support these town events there as well. And I was thinking, you know, a lot of this same crowd is the same crowd that comes to the Veterans Day where we honor our veterans, Memorial Day where we honor those that gave the ultimate sacrifice, and are there also for Martin Luther King Day to really just celebrate what these people died and fought for.
Right.
So there really was a real nice synergy to that in my mind as I kind of survey the crowd, and I know who's at those because you know, and you and I are at all those events, so you know we can see the crowd.
Right.
Wouldn't it, I just have great hope for us, and I think that if we can kind of carry that over, and maybe it spills out among, you know, but I think it needs to start locally.
And toward that end, the Human Rights Commission has International Women's Day coming up for the second year on March 6th. It'll be at the Savings Bank Theater. And the committee that's putting that together is bringing in a panel of women from outside Wakefield this year
okay.
to talk about how they overcame obstacles to doing what they wanted to do.
Right.
So keep an eye out for that one. And then the speaker series will be back in the fall. But at the same time, we're also facing another issue which the commission and hopefully, the selectmen and everyone else will work towards getting the word out. A group has been formed and gotten the necessary signatures to put on the ballot in November a repeal of the bathroom bill from 2016 that
The public
the
accommodation,
public accommodation
bill.
or Chapter 134,
Yeah.
I guess it's called too, to say, I'm sorry, but transgender people are not people.
Right.
And
Exactly.
we know that to be false. And hopefully, we can put together some things to
Yeah,
let people
I
know what's going
right,
on and
right.
and why this is an important law.
Right. And I know that town councilor Maureen Butt, she would want me to say that.
It's not town council
Yeah,
yet.
not yet, but I'm saying it for now. And she's very active, and this is very important to her.
Yes.
She has sensitized me to that issue. But what I think is good from our end about, it's not good that this is coming forward and we have to go and maybe beat this at the ballot, is that this has already been enacted.
Mm-hmm.
This law has been enacted, and we
Right.
have handled it within the town and within the schools and within the public buildings.
Right.
The sky has not fallen in.
That's right.
There hasn't been an issue. In fact, it's been nothing. It's been as if it never, it's
As
a
if the controversy never existed.
never existed.
Yeah.
So I think that it's what is all this consternation about about something that we've already, it's a non-issue.
Right.
Yet it brings up kind of hating a group. It is definitely hating a group for whatever they are.
Right.
And that's wrong.
And at the end of the day, and I've said it, in the Rotary talk, and I've said it at the opening remarks, what we need, we have a very small commission. What we need is people out there to come and give us ideas, come and give us suggestions, volunteer to work with us on projects, or any of the other groups in town, because we have some phenomenal other groups in town, civic groups, church groups, to, just even simply get to know a neighbor they don't know yet.
Exactly.
And build a bond.
Exactly. Interestingly enough, I think years ago, and I don't know what anniversary this was of 9/11, everyone went out and lit a candle.
Right.
And you saw up and down your street all your neighbors out there. Maybe that's something we have to work on in Wakefield. Let's light a candle for human rights in Wakefield. Maybe that's something we could do.
And that's a great idea.
It's a great
And,
idea. There you go.
thank you for joining us. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.